OK, I'm joined now by political commentator Benedict Spence. Benedict, it's always a pleasure. I'd like to start with the situation, if I could, Benedict. We have some breaking news on GBNews from Colonel Richard Kemp, and that is that military veterans have been warned by several regiments not to wear their medals or their insignia on the way to Armistice or remembrance events. With that in mind, and with what Suella Braverman was saying about the policing being insufficient, do you think the situation is panning out to prove Suella Braverman got this right?
I mean, up to a point, yes. I mean, it's disgraceful if this is the case, that members of the armed forces, veterans, feel that they can't, feel that this would put their safety in jeopardy in their own country. In a Western democracy, the idea that they wouldn't be allowed to walk around for fear of being attacked or abused it's laughable, it's disgraceful. It isn't a situation that I think the average member of the public would be happy with. The thing is, with all of this sort of talk around Suella Braverman, it is a lot of talk. And that, I'm afraid, is my real issue. I understand that Suella Braverman is very popular amongst sort of Tory grassroots. A lot of people like what she has to say, but that is all that it says. She says a lot. There isn't actually been a whole lot of accomplishments on her watch. And now a lot of people could say, well, that's because ultimately the Prime Minister has the final say and the Chancellor comes above it. But actually, this is a Home Secretary who has spoken a lot, has gaffed quite a lot, and she may well have sort of struck a chord with a lot of members of the public, but ultimately that hasn't changed anything. And it's all very well sort of saying the police employ a double standard, which they seem to. It's all very well saying we don't want to go back to a sort of a Northern Ireland-esque sectarian situation where you have sort of clashes between different competing communities in Britain, which, is something that people would like to avoid. It's all very well saying these things, but actually the ability of a politician to act on these things and to prevent them from becoming problems is the major issue. And from what I see with Suella Braverman, it looks to me like she is on manoeuvres with with her eye on a leadership bid. What has she actually done apart from talk a good game to suggest that she would make a good leader? Nothing, from what I can see.
Well, Benedict, some might say, in fact, many, many more are saying by the hour that the Conservative Party is at a precipice of the most apocalyptic defeat since 1997. And that's because they appear to be two entirely different parties. They were two parties on Brexit. They just about got whipped into shape. They put on their best rictus grins and said, we'll get Brexit done. They got through that one. But now, on immigration, on policing, on law and order, on Rwanda, on net zero, we have a party that's diametrically opposed. It feels sometimes like we have a Conservative Party, and a lot of them are actually Liberal Democrats. Maybe Suella doing this is forcing that into the open, and maybe this might make the party, after the next election, actually Conservative again.
Well, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. An awful lot of Tory MPs are just Liberal Democrats who quite fancied being in government, and that was a better way of getting into government than joining the Liberal Democrats. And it's sad that we all know that that is the case, and have known it for some time. I do think that Suella Braverman is shifting the dial, but...
We lost Benedict. He was just getting warmed up there. He might be back in a minute. But look, I want to put this to you guys out there, because this is just, I think, bubbling up to the surface now. We're seeing this divided party through Brexit. We saw so many Conservatives, don't forget, including Theresa May, the Prime Minister at the time, trying to stop Brexit, trying to derail it, trying to push us towards a second referendum. That didn't happen. The Brexit Party came along. Boris Johnson came along. That job got done because their feet were held to the fire. But now it feels those same schisms just exist throughout the entire party on different realms. Benedict, you're just getting warmed up there. Would you like to pick up again on the notion of two parties within one?
Yeah, somebody was listening in and didn't like what I had to say. It is one of those things that sadly we've all known about for a very long time. And secretly, that's why we all knew why, when the Liberal Democrats went into coalition with the Tories, it made a lot of sense, because actually they were far more ideologically aligned than they would like to admit. I do think that Suella Braverman talking a good game will shift the dial for a lot of people. That is to be applauded. And a lot of what she said actually in the Times article is being blown slightly out of proportion. She gets the language a bit off centre every now and then, but she's in tune with a lot of the voters. But what I would say is, if that wing of the Tory party is to be the one that triumphs over the more sort of liberal wing of the party, I don't think it's going to be her that's going to be at the helm. Ultimately, I think that she's slightly too damaged goods. She's a little bit too chaotic, and when you speak to people who sort of have worked with her and worked with other Home Secretaries, there are questions about talent, about competency. I think it's interesting that a lot of Tory backbenchers, a lot of staffers, a lot of grassroots people, if you were to ask them who would you prefer, Suella Braverman as Home Secretary, or would you rather bring back, say, somebody similar, like Priti Patel, with similar ideas, but perhaps a little bit more competency, I think a lot of more moderate Tories would lean towards Priti Patel when it comes down to a question of competency. They don't see Suella Braverman as being quite as talented a politician.
OK, Benedict Spence, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your input. Many people feel that a storm needs to come onto the Tory party. Maybe Storm Suella is what they need.